Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our guest journey panel at the Blue Loop Festival of Innovation. I'm Tera Greenwood, Executive Vice President of Brand and Relationships at SSA Group. Cultural attractions, zoos, museums, aquariums aren't just competing with each other anymore. We're competing with escape rooms, immersive theater, theme parks, and every other experience vying for people's time and money. The rules have changed. Guests are more selective. Expectations are higher, and the definition of a great experience keeps evolving. Today, we're exploring how leading institutions are responding by reimagining the guest experience through three key lenses: innovation, design, and storytelling, and critically, how these work together to help cultural attractions stay relevant in today's experience economy. I'm joined by two incredible leaders who are doing exactly this work every day. Let me introduce them. First, Randi Hamilton, Chief Experience Officer at the Detroit Zoological Society. The Detroit Zoo welcomes 1.3 million visitors annually and contributes more than $167 million to the local economy, making it a cultural and economic anchor for the region. Randi brings a unique hospitality background to the zoo world and has led a comprehensive organizational transformation. In May of 24, she spearheaded the launch of a major rebrand, a 2-year initiative that went far beyond aesthetics to fundamentally redefine the zoo's identity, mission, and guest experience philosophy. This included unveiling a redesigned iconic 100-year-old water tower, a new visual identity, a reimagined website and mobile app, and the tagline, "Where Life Connects." Under her leadership, the zoo has launched multiple groundbreaking initiatives, including Discovery Trails, the most expansive new experience in the zoo's history, opening in 26, and Detroit Zoo Inside and Out, a long-form episodic content partnership that extends the zoo's conservation storytelling beyond its gates. She's pioneered the application of hospitality principles to cultural attractions, including trip persona modeling, AI-powered guest planning tools, and assistive technology like Reboca for guests with visual impairments. Randi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We also have Abby Bysshe, Chief Experience and Strategy Officer at the Franklin Institute. Abby brings 20 years of experience in innovative museum business modeling and exhibition development, including leadership roles at the National Gallery of Art and National Geographic, where she led traveling exhibitions and international museum partnerships. At the Franklin Institute, Pennsylvania's most visited museum and a top 5 tourist destination in Philadelphia, she's currently leading a comprehensive redesign of all exhibitions and a master planning process that intersects with the museum's bicentennial. Abby is a sought-after thought leader in the experience and location-based entertainment industries, speaking regularly at the American Alliance of Museums, Aztec, and IAPA. She was named among Blue Loop's top 50 museum influencers in 22 and received the Women of Influence distinction from the Philadelphia Business Journal in 24. Abby, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's dive into what's happening. Randi, we'll start with you. The Detroit Zoo just completed a significant rebrand, but this wasn't just about a new logo. You've approached this through the lens of hospitality and experience design. Can you walk us through what you've reimagined, particularly around guest touchpoints and service standards? And as part of the rebrand, how did you reimagine the stories you tell about conservation, animals, and the zoo's mission?
Absolutely. You already mentioned a little bit of really what was at the heart of our focus, which was this wasn't just a visual reimagining, but truly looking at our entire brand identity. Are we connecting our team members the way they need to be connected to their day-to-day in order to truly connect our visitors, and the way we really reach the communities that we support, not only within our region, but across the globe. So for us, it was really looking at first, where is our North Star truly sitting? And from that point, not only looking at our core values are the ones that we had, really exemplifying where we're headed, knowing that we are almost a 100-year institution ourselves. We need to still maintain the heart of everything we do with conservation, but we also need to make sure we're staying relevant to the times, relevant to what people may or may not perceive about zoos and aquariums and institutions like ours, and really look at ways that we're not creating just inspiration, but action. We really want people to, engage not only with the stories we have to tell, but see themselves in them. So for us, this visual change really was bringing to life what was at the heart of that North Star. So we shifted a lot about really, truly storytelling. It was no longer just facts about animals, but really creating stories that connected not only whether it be a meaningful moment or a core memory, but also impact. And that took, storyteller training for our team. So we have a lot of great storytellers, but are they meeting people where they are? Are we really telling the stories that they want to hear in ways that they can absorb them? We did a lot of community research. We found out that sometimes the things we thought we were delivering well, we truly needed to deliver in a way that wasn't sounding like we were either preaching, but yes, getting a little bit more of the entertainment and fun into that, but still telling the message we wanted them to take home. The other way that we really looked at this and touch points throughout our experience visually, as well as through platforms such as the changes to our website, launching a new app, these were all in mind not only to improve the visitor and user experience, but we thought a lot about accessibility and inclusion. So, expanding programs that we have had for years, like Culture City, to be more impactful and making sure all of our visitors are aware that those resources are available. We've worked with Sunflower Hidden Disabilities Program, and we launched Roboca, which is a visual inclusion platform. So a lot of these tools really helped us grow our brand in a new way and really align with our brand identity. And as you mentioned, Detroit Zoo Inside and Out gave us a long form opportunity to share our stories and connect in a new way. And that is a partnership with a long-standing community news group that connection gave us a chance to not only reconnect with people who are already loyal to us, but possibly open ourselves up to new audiences at the same time. And if anything, try to inspire interest and engagement. Maybe somebody becomes so enthralled that they want to be a conservationist and have their boots on the ground helping with field work, or they want to be the next veterinarian at their zoo or their local pet hospital. It's just a chance for us to tell stories from our team members' point of views. One of the things we learned is our audiences want to hear more from our teams that are doing the work every day. And that wasn't something we did so well before. And this new brand allowed us to do that in a more effective and exciting way.
Animal keepers are celebrities.
They really are.
Yeah. So Abby, the Franklin Institute is redesigning all your exhibitions with guests at the forefront of your storytelling, shifting from what we think they should learn to what guests are interested in. How does that change the actual stories you tell? And can you give us an example of a story you're telling now that you wouldn't have told before?
Yeah, I think Randy's totally speaking my language with the need for cultural institutions to kind of push the boundaries and understand how entertainment can intersect with the missions that we're bringing about. And we did a lot of research really with kids from around 4th to 12th grade in our workshops. We bring in a lot of other voices, but the kids are the ones that have the least filter and are the most honest about what they're looking for in our experience. So we like to start with them. I will use an example of our recent Body Odyssey exhibition that we opened. We have these, when we went through our planning process, we have these huge buckets, right? We're going to do a space exhibit. We're going to do a human body exhibit. You can build whole museums off of those. So we really need the kids as a starting point to kind of get us through curating down to what they really want to focus on. And we knew mental health was going to be a conversation that we came across post-pandemic, especially with these kids. What we did not realize was how robust that conversation was across all age ranges. So that really made us kind of refocus on on the amount of square footage we gave that conversation. We went out and found a content advisor that dealt with mental health among the teenage cohort to be able to help kind of get that content out in the way that made sense. So I think the way we thought the exhibit was going to kind of form itself from a content perspective really shifted from those workshops that we have with those kids. And we've seen that we're doing an Earth and Science exhibition now, and just understanding how animals are such an entry point to that conversation was something we've never touched on before. Like ecosystems and things are not a topic that we have talked about. We've leaned much more into planetary health and climate science in our recent exhibition. So I think these kids and these workshops really cement kind of that initial thrust of the way we want to organize these exhibitions, and when we bring in content experts to kind of help bolster that that learning and that experience.
It's really about the storytelling. You know, if I hear you both, what's resonating for me is the idea that the physical spaces, whether it's exhibits or, you know, for my world, retail and dining, you know, they're not just functional. They're storytelling tools. And, you know, we partner with Detroit Zoo, and over the past couple of years, we've been rethinking, you know, food and beverage and retail, not as afterthoughts or necessarily revenue generating, you know, entities, but as integral parts of the guest journey that tell their own story about what the institution values. And when we relocated the gift shop, it wasn't just about visibility. It was about creating moments of comfort for the guest and the connection that supports the larger conservation narrative. And the question that we're always asking ourselves is, what story is the space telling?
Yep.
And does it align with the institution's mission and guest experience and their expectations? Let's talk about where you're finding inspiration for these changes. You know, Randi, I know you're constantly benchmarking, you know, IAPA, other cultural attractions, hospitality leaders. When you visit, whether it be a hotel or a theme park, what ideas are you looking for and are you taking back? And how are you using innovation and design to make the zoo's stories more compelling and accessible to guests?
Well, I will honestly say I've borrowed a lot from all of my travels. I think we have an ongoing joke among a couple colleagues of how many pictures of trash cans and signs and curb cuts I have in my phone, even on family vacations. I'm like, look at this. But yeah, I think for me, anywhere that I find a seamless flow, you know, there are so many barriers on how people take in their experiences, and if we can find ways to reduce those barriers and create, you know, a more flexible experience for a visitor, because we're truly catering to such a broad group, the more flexible the better, the more seamless the better. So anytime I see something that just strikes that tone for me, I seek out who designed it, where was it inspired from, what was the challenge before, because we're asking ourselves those questions a lot. You know, when you walk up to this space, what is going to make the most for a visitor versus not? And same thing from a platform standpoint and the platforms we create and use, but really everything from looking at how we're creating multi-use space now, especially in our spaces, as you mentioned earlier. You know, some of the innovation that we're looking at is we have a very old campus, and a lot of our spaces were not designed to be multi-use. So how can we revisit that so that, especially when we're considering animal well-being as well as telling conservation stories, we can still make it an engaging experience for a visitor when a space maybe wasn't really designed to do all of that before. One of the other things that I'd say is really working for us is we're leaning into how old we are and tying nostalgia and innovation together. So examples, you mentioned our historic water tower. That's a beacon in this region for us. But when we did the rebrand, we also added an augmented reality component. So people could now see themselves with the water tower, see it come to life, and standing at different pinpoints in the zoo and seeing different angles of how that comes to life. We've brought back things that people remember from 20 and 40 years ago, but with a new twist to them. And it's allowing, oh, I remember when I did that with my grandparents, or I should bring my grandchildren back, or, you know, I haven't been there in so long, because we've brought these items back that really touched the heartstrings. So that's really, really working for us.
I love that. You got to touch the emotional points. Abby, you've implemented some bold physical changes, digital signage, wayfinding moments, and bolder exhibition entries. How are these design innovations helping guests connect with the science stories you're telling, and what guest behavior or pain point were you trying to solve?
Yeah, so our original building is 1930s, and then we have 2 additions, one from the 90s and one from 2014, which are doing their best to communicate with each other architecturally, but we have a lot of challenges from a wayfinding perspective, and people spend a lot of time trying to make their way through our building to find the next thing they're trying to see. So one of not only was the visitor experience within the exhibitions and the storytelling and entertainment we were bringing to those, but we really wanted to reduce friction during the stay so people were getting to where they needed to go even faster. And there are different pathways if you have a stroller or in a wheelchair versus if you're able-bodied. So it is elevators go all over the place in our building. There's no one elevator that goes to all the same locations. So signage and wayfinding are a huge investment for us, and really taking that to a digital platform allows a ton of flexibility in being able to supply maps and directionals, being able to go from a daytime experience to our nighttime corporate events. All that really kind of allowed for us to have a ton more flexibility in being able to deliver information. And then just the way that we need to create more bold visual pathways for people. So having those bold exhibit entries, being able to turn the corner and visually be able to see where you need to go, as opposed to having signage have to do all the heavy lifting. So just really trying to think how we're visually taking people through the building step by step and getting them to what we want them to be experiencing, which are our fun exhibits and our live shows and all the great content that we produce.
You both are working on very different physical spaces, but I'm hearing a similar theme about using design and innovation to make stories more accessible. As you both are listening to each other, what's resonating as you hear each other talk?
I was going to say, I'm glad I'm not the only person that takes pictures of trash cans.
We're kindred.
I think I'm really, resonating with Randi, because everything she is saying, I think, are the things that we are thinking about as we're moving through our experience. We're coming from longstanding organizations. We don't have the joy of kind of a purpose-built current state architecture that has all the bells and whistles that you need. Like, we have tons of uphill battles around infrastructure and wayfinding and all of that on top of trying to stay relevant with experience and storytelling. So I think museums and cultural institutions are in this kind of unique situation where longstanding locations, and we're up against people who are coming in and out in a 3-year cycle and able to kind of pop up new experiences and do different things. And, the amount of innovation, and I always call it curator best practices, the amount we have to be out there looking at what other people are doing, taking advantage of their R&D and their investment, and see what makes sense for our institutions, finding the right partners who are in the entertainment space that can kind of help us kind of bring those interests and those innovations into the building. It's a constant grind and a lot of work, and it doesn't end. We have to staying relevant as an older institution is a lot of work. So it's nice to hear that Randi, and I'm resonating with everything Randi said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think too, there's that element of hearing where the humility lies in all of this too, right? We don't have all the answers, and where we're seeking our best practices from really are not within the industry that we are in at all times, because we aren't always doing it the best, and acknowledging that and learning from our communities, through focus groups. Sharing that too with Abby and their processes. We've learned so much from asking our communities how they view us, and also learned a lot about why some have not been coming to see us or connecting with us in other ways, because we just didn't resonate. So it's been a great learning. So I hear you there too, Abby.
I'm honored to be a judge on the Guest Journey Award. And as I'm reading the entries, I'm seeing this connection across the industry. We're seeing AI being used in fascinating ways. Analyzing guest feedback across every touch point to identify friction points, helping them personalize tour experiences, and even dynamic pricing that balances crowd flow with revenue goals. And what strikes me is that these innovations aren't about technology for technology's sake. They're about removing friction and creating those seamless, personalized experiences that today's guests expect. And they're helping operators make smarter, faster decisions on real data. You know, at SSA, we are seeing the same pattern. You know, the most successful programs that we have are using data and technology to anticipate the needs, to help us reduce friction and create those memory anchors that the guests can take home. So we've talked about what you're doing. Now let's talk about where all of this is going. Abby, you said something powerful in your prep. You said the experience business has blossomed over the last decade and museums are not keeping up. Why do you think that is, and what needs to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a myriad of reasons why. I think some of it is business model, some of it has been priorities. I think the pandemic was really the last kind of kick in the butt that we really need to start focusing on the experience piece, and competition is something that we cannot ignore. It's just become so prevalent. I mean, Philadelphia is ground zero for every pop-up you can possibly think of. And, you know, we're competing for time there, but also with our sports teams. I mean, there's just a ton of competition for time. And it's tough. I mean, museums, they don't have the resources necessarily to keep kind of being in an endless capital campaign and keep updating and being able to keep up with all these innovations. But I think it's something we need to talk about as an industry more. I would say at industry conferences, it is, you know, experience design is probably, you can count on one hand how many sessions are in those conferences. And they are conversations that need to be more in the forefront, talking about business model, talking about experience. We do mission very well. We know how to do that at cultural institutions. It's how we are combining that with experiences that are going to drive people to the building. And leave them with inspirational moments that they're going to remember and tell their friends about. We need to focus as an as an industry wide, figuring out how to do that better and how to support each other in that innovation.
Do you think that by focusing on fun and experience that it creates tension with your mission? And how do you balance the entertaining experiences with meaningful storytelling?
I actually don't think that there's tension there. I think it's, you know, it's a requirement. I mean, I think making science fun, if it's not fun, then what are we doing? I mean, it's what we should be doing as institutions, and we should be broadening the net as much as possible. So even someone who doesn't feel like science is something for them, they come in for the fun of it and leave realizing that space is a wondrous, incredible place, and have more curiosity to do learning when they go home. I mean, we bolster the in-building experience with all of the cool stuff we do around curriculum development and teacher training and community development. I mean, we have these wonderful programs that kind of bolster this in-building kind of focus on different topics. And we really want to be that inspiration, that wow moment that's going to stick with people and have people kind of remember us and be that first entry point into how cool science can be. And I think if you're not doing that, then you're not delivering on your mission. So I think those things go hand in hand.
You know, Randi, zoos have conservation and education missions too. I think they're very bold when you go to the zoos. I don't know if you faced any internal resistance at Detroit Zoo, but how can you make the case that the guest experience and the mission aren't in conflict within the zoo?
Sure. It's a great conversation. And honestly, we have it all the time, only from a standpoint of not necessarily is it tension creating or if there's resistance, but reminding ourselves that this isn't an or discussion, but it's an and discussion. You know, it's truly, there isn't a need to choose whether this is mission or if this is entertainment, because it doesn't have to be viewed that way. We shouldn't be siloing ourselves that way. You know, there is sometimes this dialogue around, more money, more mission. And some people might feel that that's crude, but it's a reality that unless we find ways for people to really latch on to the stories we're telling, the differences we're making, and the way they can be part of it, we won't be effective moving forward. So for us, that philosophy is one that we talk about often. It actually helps us filter through the things we should do. It really helps us know, okay, if this isn't checking a couple of important boxes when it comes to the mission messages we want to send and what's at the heart of everything we do, we don't do it. And so have we perfected that practice yet? No, we're working on ways to do it, but because it's how we do less better, and really deliver at home. But I think, for us, we're really going to get a chance to exercise that as we open our new immersive 7-acre habitat and exhibit space with Discovery Trails. This is a great place for that. How we're aligning our mission messaging with ways that people can be immersed in the impacts of ecosystems being affected by, climate change, human impact, and so on. But being able to go through experiences where they can visually see that or understand it more. Everything from picking up and trying to weigh animal diets with like size items that are measured out specifically in our farmers market area, just to connect to something that some of our youth today have never really understood as far as agriculture is concerned, and how we tie that story together, because it's still a very big part of our world today. So, it's really important for us that we aren't choosing between whether it's mission or not, but it's everything all the time.
Love that. So looking ahead, this is for both of you, looking ahead 3 to 5 years, do you think cultural attractions will fully embrace being in the entertainment business, or is there a third path?
What an interesting question. I think sometimes it depends on I think zoos, science centers, aquariums are already kind of leaning in that direction and have been for quite some time. And I think a lot of that is driven by business model needs. I mean, there is a higher earned revenue responsibility around those types of organizations. I haven't been in the art museum world in a while, so I can't really speak to kind of where their priorities are kind of landing and what they're kind of attempting to do from the entertainment perspective and experience perspective. But I know they're kind of on the opposite ends of us, right? We're trying to bring in more adults without kids. They're trying to bring in more families. So I think the journey is not going to end in 3 to 5 years. I'm hoping. I mean, I see more museums come to IAAPA than I have in the last 10 years, which I think is a great sign of people kind of looking outside their industry for some inspiration. So, my hope is that continues to grow and people move in that direction and understand that entertainment is not a bad word, and it really is a in part and parcel of kind of our mission and where we're going. And at the end of the day, having more people come into your experience is always a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it, I could see things going much more to a participatory effort, creation through alignment. It's designing with visitors, not necessarily for them, keeping them in mind, but really inviting them to the conversation. Because if we're not thinking about what's resonating, then it won't bring them back.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from both of you is that it isn't an either or proposition. It's not mission versus entertainment. It's mission through experience.
Yeah.
And it's, purpose-driven entertainment or entertainment and service. From SSA's perspective, we're seeing this play out in unexpected ways. The merchandise and dining programs that perform best aren't just fun. They're meaningful and connected to the mission, a sustainability-focused product line or a menu that tells a story of a local ecosystem. The future isn't about choosing mission and experience. It's about designing experiences so compelling that the mission becomes irresistible. But let's be honest, none of this is easy, and you're both facing real challenges. Abby, you mentioned costs continuing to rise and needing to be even more strategic with every dollar in a competitive market like Philadelphia, especially next year. Oh my goodness, you've got The All Stars. You've got the centennial or the 250th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
How are you making tough choices about where to invest in the guest experience versus where to pull back?
Yeah, I think, when we started our planning process in 2018, we had some pretty big architectural moves built in to try and kind of really permanently solve the 3 building problem that we have and that architectural communication. And through rising costs and just having to realign post-pandemic, we really started to focus in on where we knew the dollars would make the most impact, which was really on the experience side. We were very long in the tooth, and a lot of our exhibits, our infrastructure was out of date. And moving through those exhibits and bringing relevancy and an upgraded experience really became the priority. And when we do even each individual exhibit budget, which gets harder and harder to fit current pricing into those, you just have to start making decisions around the things that are going to drive guest satisfaction the most. Mm-hmm. That solid interactive experience, good storytelling. You may lose a design detail or two that you really, really wanted to have in there. But, at the end of the day, that last 5% that maybe only a couple people are going to notice isn't where the dollars need to be spent. It's really on those kind of multi-person interactive experiences that people are going to remember.
Randi, attendance is down, something that many cultural attractions are facing right now. And you're trying to you're trying creative solutions like strategic pricing and public events. What's working and what's not, and how do you balance short-term attendance goals with long-term brand building?
Absolutely. Patterns have shifted. People are not planning as far in advance anymore, or also in some cases, not even finding the price consciousness that we used to, because they'd rather have the last minute decision because it fits in their daytime, or potentially they do have the dollars to spend that week because they have room after doing all the things they need to do. So that focus on value and relevance for us is really shifting versus volume, I think would be the best way I could lay that out. So for us, mission aligned events are really helping for us, but we're also looking at and seeing an improvement in some of our niche events as well. Audiences that maybe have been infrequent, and creating ways for them to have more frequency because it works for them. A lot of times in institutions like ours, we're family based. And once people have family members that are youth that are 12 and older, we kind of lose them for a little while. So how do we bring them back? So we've been working on that and seeing some great returns there. But also we are knowing that what doesn't work for us is deep discounting. It devalues us. It can potentially erode the brand in the long term. So we're focusing more on how are we working with our dynamic pricing model, which we have found great success with, to make sure that our floor of our pricing and the ceiling of our pricing still allow for a lot of room in between, so that we can align with number of budgets across the community. And we also have been doing a lot with community partners, being present in ways that if we can't get people to come to us, how do we go to them? So we've been doing a lot of new and unique ways to connect with our audiences. So if there is a barrier that they can't get to us, how do we create mission, message, and engagement through other forms? And we're having a lot of fun with that. So that's been really effective for us.
You're both dealing with rising cost and heightened expectations. How do you say no to good ideas, and how do you decide what moves the needle versus what's just nice to have?
I think we do a lot. I mean, I love working in a science center because try, test, and fail is a great model to think about when working through a lot of programmatic things. We definitely have a matrix that we look at when we're making decisions, but sometimes it takes doing something a couple times, but being able to stop doing it is actually more important, and not having it kind of linger too long and be unsuccessful. So I think we've gotten a lot better at kind of pulling the plug on things that may not be working as well as we had hoped. And I think that's really helped us kind of be able to give ourselves room to innovate around a certain parameter, but also give ourselves the grace to go, okay, this isn't working. Let's park this for a minute and see what else we can come up with.
Mm-hmm. We are in the same boat. For us, we've been looking at our impact effort matrix to really determine the things we do and don't do, or stop doing, because even though we love them, we have to acknowledge maybe they're not serving our best purposes anymore. While there used to be maybe only 4 or 5 categories in that now, we've redeveloped that tool with some support from some partners that takes into account a lot more of that North Star that I mentioned earlier. So there is core value and mission alignment. There's consideration of team burnout and weight on not just one area or 2 areas of the organization, but what is the domino effect across multiple? Because a lot of times decisions, while you'd like to think they're being made in a collaborative way, there's a lot of unilateral that still happens. And so just when those things take place, are we really truly considering everything that we should be?
Abby, I'm going to steal your try, test, and fail all of that. We all need to do that. The tension between operational realities and guest expectation is real.
Yeah.
We all want to do everything better. Wayfinding, better technology, better accessibility, better storytelling, but resources are finite. And
Yeah.
I think what separates the organizations that thrive from those that struggle is exactly what you both are describing. You have to have a clear framework for decision making, whether it's impact effort matrix or another tool, having criteria that everyone understands. It creates alignment. It means teams can prioritize confidently and critically say no gracefully. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for the guest experience is do fewer things exceptionally well rather than many things adequately.
Yep.
Well, we're coming up on time, so let's bring this home. Randi, Abby, thank you so much for such an honest, practical, and inspiring conversation. The through line that I'm hearing through this is innovation, design, and storytelling aren't separate strategies. They work together to create experiences that resonate with today's guest. You can't have a compelling storytelling without thoughtful design, and you can't have meaningful innovation without understanding the stories you're trying to tell. They're interconnected. And what gives me tremendous optimism about the future of cultural attractions is that institutions that will thrive, the ones you're both leading, are the ones willing to learn from other industries, even unexpected ones, put guests at the center, even when it's uncomfortable, make hard decisions with clear framework, and embrace that we're in the experience business, full stop. That doesn't mean abandoning mission. It means delivering mission through unforgettable experiences. So before we end, Abby, Randi, any final thoughts for the audience?
No, other than Randi, I'd love to keep in touch because you're you're on my wavelength. So
I'll see what I have to be
part of this.
I'll be there. But absolutely, likewise. And I think my only final thought is, for so long, this has been perceived, experience has been perceived as service only. For the longest time, guest relations or guest service is really where the heart of a lot of that focus has lived. And it's really just been, not everybody, but I think a number of people kind of bucketed as a reactionary or primary necessity of a business, but not necessarily thinking about it as a primary focus. And to see titles come up where it's experience leader is exciting to me, because I think it's really showing that there's a true understanding of the breadth of what that really touches, and that it's not just about a single service being provided, but so much more. So I hope more start to follow suit, because the emotional connection is really important.
Yeah, and I'll add to that experience is not just a department, it's something across the organization. So really every part and parcel, whether it's operations or guest experiences, contribute to that guest moment, from making sure exhibits aren't broken to making sure that someone is getting greeted in the right way when they come into the building. I mean, all of those parts and pieces kind of add up to what is a memorable experience, and everybody has a role in that, not just the design team who's making exhibits.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Well, thank you both. To everyone watching, the big takeaway here is that you don't need unlimited budgets or massive teams to transform your guest experience. You need clarity on what matters, frameworks for making decisions, and a willingness to learn from industries outside your own. Start with one friction point, fix it, learn it, and build from there. The winners of the Guest Journey categories will be announced next. Thank you all for joining us today.
And now for the Blue Loop Innovation Awards 2025 Guest Journey category winners. Third place, Smart Pay from Vantage Technology. Second place, GX Pulse from Attractions.io. And first place, Muser AI Tour Guides from Muser Guide. Congratulations to all of the winners.